It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Avila's head volleyball coach, Coach Marylyn Mozena. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you want to get started in coaching in college volleyball?
Yeah, so I would say that I actually had maybe a non-traditional way of getting into college coaching. I didn't actually know that that was something I wanted to do right off the get-go. It was just getting involved at the high school level, and then seeing a lot of success there that kind of intrigued me into college coaching. So at the time that my coaching career first started, I was actually still a student, and I was just volunteering with the high school that I actually graduated from, the basketball coach. So I was just volunteering there and then ended up getting hired as a junior high volleyball coach there. And then ended up getting hired as an assistant basketball coach for the women's team. And I coached with he's a mentor of mine today, actually, Joel Hoffman. I started coaching with him really just in the aspect of I respected him and kind of the way he coached. He was very much a player's coach, and I just knew I could learn a lot from him. And so I took that on, obviously was doing that for about 4 years. And in 2021, Joel, before the start of our basketball season, Joel actually had just accepted a assistant position up at Morningside, which is another NAI school in the Midwest, as the men's basketball coach there. And so obviously that was very devastating. But we ended up going into that 2021 season, and we ended up winning our first ever state championship in basketball that year for our school. And so it was kind of a like last hurrah for Joel, which was really cool. But then I kind of had this, I guess, moment where I realized that coaching is really what I wanted to do. And so I remember having several conversations with Joel about, maybe college coaching would be something that I would like to look into one day. And so then I had reached out to my college coach, Trish, and she actually was like heading off to nationals for the NAI national tournament that year. It was the weird year where it was in the spring because of COVID. And so she was like, hey, when we get back, let's chat. And so it was kind of crazy because she got back from nationals and she had sent me the link to apply to Avila. And she was like, hey, I have a job opportunity for you. I think you should apply for it. And I was kind of like, oh, I'm not really sure. Like, I don't have any experience. I don't know if I really want to move away from home and all of the things. And she's like, honestly, you should just apply for experience. And so next thing I knew, I found myself applying, getting in touch with the athletic director, Sean Sumi here at Avila. And really just again, in my mind, I came into it thinking I was just getting experience interviewing, what it was going to be like interviewing for a college coaching position. And then a couple weeks later, I ended up getting a call from Sean and they were offering me the job. And so I found myself accepting it. And a month later, kind of packing up my stuff and moving to Kansas City, knowing nobody and just kind of starting on this journey. And so I definitely would say it was never a thought in my mind growing up that I wanted to be a college coach. My mom was a high school coach for 25 years. So I always thought education would be what I would do. I'd be an elementary teacher, and then coach high school sports, but never thought college. But it's funny how the Lord works in mysterious ways, and all of your experiences can lead to kind of unexpected plans.
What was that experience like going to college and playing two different sports, volleyball and basketball?
Yeah, so at Bellevue, it started out, they didn't actually have a basketball team at the time. They were set to get one my sophomore year, and I was coming from a local high school in Weeping Water, Nebraska. So a small little town where, I played all the sports, and really I had a successful career in volleyball and basketball throughout high school, and I wasn't really ready to give up basketball. And so I went in my freshman year just playing volleyball. Loved it. It was an incredible experience. I actually think I probably appreciate the experience more now than I did at the time, just because I didn't, I just feel like you just don't know what you don't know. But Bellevue is one of the top NAI teams in the nation. They actually just were the runner-up for the national tournament this last year. So it's definitely a pristine program that a lot of people want to play for. And so, looking back at the moment, I don't know that I was like thought really much of it, but fast forward to today, it's definitely something that I'm super proud of. And it was an incredible experience. I think playing for Trish had its highs and lows. But, fast forward again to today, I can look back and there was a lot of things I learned from her from the volleyball side of things. And then basketball, obviously got the opportunity to play that and be a part of like the inaugural kind of first few years of that program. And my coach Dave Denley was incredible. Again, I'm a big like learner. I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to be different, or I want to be better. And so it was just a different perspective from Dave Denley than it was from Trish. And so getting the opportunity just to learn from both of them from a coaching aspect was really, really incredible. But also both of them were very different coaches. I would say it was probably for me a little bit easier to relate with my basketball coach than it was with my volleyball coach. But again, I learned great things from both of them. And so if I had to kind of sum it up, it would be, one word would be, it was an honor to get to kind of wear that jersey and play for Bellevue University.
Coming out of college, what was that experience like coaching on the high school level and coaching and going to the state championship?
Yeah. Honestly, it was a slow process. Again, I started out kind of as a volunteer. And so really I was doing the grunt work. It was a lot of, and not even grunt work, I guess. I probably shouldn't say that, but it was a lot of just learning. Not that I didn't put input, but it was, I was maybe just a fly on the wall early on and just really soaking up kind of the things that it took to be a part of a championship team. And so early on, I maybe didn't use my voice as much as, I could have. But as I started to kind of move into the role of actually being an assistant and being the first assistant for Joel, I would say the experience of it was incredible in a from a growth standpoint. Like I grew from a confidence in knowing what I was capable of, what I was teaching, what we were practicing, which I think, being a part of that process, so I played for Joel, his first year at my high school. I was a player for him. So it was my senior year. And then obviously I went off to college, took 3 years off from the program, came back year four. Um, Started as a volunteer. That was the first year back to the state tournament for us. Was the first year back when I was helping coach. So I was a volunteer at the time. Kind of a funny full circle moment. The first time that our school had ever qualified for the state tournament in basketball was actually my freshman year of high school. And so it was really cool to come on as staff and kind of come back, be a part of the team and getting back to the state tournament. And so we went on a run, made it to the state tournament, found ourselves losing first round. Year two, it was kind of the same thing. Got there, was the number one seed, got upset by the eighth seed. And then that third year was the year that we won the state title. And so I would say all throughout those 4 years, it was just a constant collaboration of what do we got to do to get past that first round? What do we got to do to position ourselves to get a good seed going into the tournament? And it was that's something I appreciated about Joel was he was very strategic in a way of how can we put ourselves in the best position to see success, right? And for us, that last year was going out with a bang and winning winning a state title. And so I would say it was just the amount of growth I experienced in those 4 years was incredible, and I think just set me up and put me in a good position when I took over the program at Avila.
What was that feeling like coming over to Avila and becoming the next head coach and getting announced?
Yeah, I would say honestly, it was at first it was kind of intimidating, even maybe scary a little bit, because a lot of it was new. So there was a huge learning curve from the standpoint of I had never coached college volleyball. I'd never been a college coach, so I didn't necessarily know what that all entailed, right? I was coming from a high school where really all I did was coach, you know? I mean, I obviously was a teacher too, but my sole I guess, responsibility with the team was just to coach. And so when I got here, it was you're not just coaching. Actually, about 10 to 20% of my job is coaching. The rest is managing, recruiting, the backside of things, whether that's budgeting, the financials, planning things. And so honestly, it was a little bit intimidating because I went from, okay, here's the team, go coach them to now you go find your team, go create your team, kind of become the CEO of your program. And so that first year it was an honor, like I said, but also very intimidating, very scary. And so um, I'm very thankful, but I would say I'm very different today, 4 years later, than I was the first day that I stepped on campus at Avila. But it really was a shock that I got offered the job. I really had no idea. Again, my mentality was I was just getting experience. I didn't think I'd get offered the job, but I'm very humbled and very thankful that Sean took a chance on me at a very young age and gave me the opportunity because it definitely has been kind of a dream come true now today, fast forward, knowing that I get to coach college volleyball.
For you, what was that feeling like stepping onto that court for the first time as a head coach? And what was also that feeling as you said, as a young coach?
Yeah, so again, I am very honest. It was very nerve-wracking. I have a lot of or I have high expectations and high standards for myself, and so I didn't necessarily know what this journey would look like. And so for me, I would say the first thing I was focused on was winning, right? And so I was very nervous because I didn't know what that would look like. And again, I just come from a program where we were winning a lot. And I was coming to a program that traditionally hadn't been winning a lot. And so really it was, yeah, nerve-wracking. I didn't know what to expect. I felt a little not necessarily underprepared because of anything other than maybe the nerves that I had for myself. I just didn't know what to expect. And so I was like, I hope we're ready. I hope we're in a good spot. Um I hope we know what we're doing. And so it was nerve-wracking, but also it was fun. It was very much a very fun, surreal experience getting again to step into a position that was, I guess, a dream come true, but I didn't really know it was a dream. So
What was that feeling like the first time you got a win as a head coach?
yeah, it was awesome. Relieving is probably the biggest thing. I felt very relieved because I think, the biggest thing I talked to Sean about when I was applying for this job was turning the program around, and getting us to a point where we're competing for conference championships and putting ourselves in a spot where we're talked about nationally, and getting into the national tournament. And so obviously you say those things and those are your goal. And so you want to follow through with them. And so I guess for me, it was a lot of I want to show that I'm capable of doing that. And so when we got that first win, it was like, okay, I can do this, and I'm capable. And it was pretty fun. My AD got to be there. It was yeah, so it was definitely a great experience. I was actually against a team that I had grew up playing at Bellevue University, so that was kind of cool too. Just beating a team that I was familiar with, and so yeah, so it's definitely a relief and a pretty fun experience as well.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you started to build for Avalon?
Yeah, that the culture, I'm a firm believer that culture is what can really make or break a team, right? And so that was the biggest thing that I knew coming in we were going to have to change. The culture before I got here was, I just don't really think there was a culture. It wasn't necessarily that it was good or bad. It was just a lot of kind of do whatever you want type of thing. There wasn't a lot of standards and expectations to be upheld. And so when I came in, I knew that that was kind of the biggest thing that I had to change. But also, I feel like culture, you have to change it very gradually, because you're obviously like, I knew when I came in that these girls didn't commit to me and I didn't commit to them. And so there was a little bit of a give and take, right? So I didn't come in just guns a-blazing, like my way or the highway. It was a lot of like, okay, well, what has the standard been here? How have things been ran? And then it was a lot of, well, here's how I'm planning to run things moving forward, right? And so really today, 4 years later, our culture has finally kind of, not kind of, it's got a good foundation that we can kind of build off of now. And it's taken 4 years to get there, right? This next fall will be my first year where all of these kids are my own recruits. And so it's been it's been interesting. But I would say the biggest thing with culture is realizing that you never arrive. You're always going to be changing and trying to be better with that. But if you have core values, that you can kind of build from, that makes your culture a lot more sustainable with those values rather than, looking for maybe this uh, fix it real quick type of thing. And so that I think has been the gradual over time is finding those core values that, I as a coach want and expect, but then also to, giving our players a voice and a seat at the table as well, what's important. And I think that was kind of what we've seen over the last 2 years is finding those core values and what are things that we can, or how can we build off of those core values to kind of create the culture that we're looking for.
What does a typical game day look like for you as a coach versus for your players?
Yeah. So, um, I would say, again, we're at an NAI level, so game day. I really am the CEO of my program. That means set up, tear down, all the things. We do have an assistant athletic director who will set up like the scores table and our bleachers and different things like that. So I'm very thankful for that I don't have to do that. But when it comes to the net, we set up the net. The camera, we set the camera up. Making sure that the school that's coming in has their locker room, knows where they're going, knows where the athletic trainer is, all of those things. So I would say there's a little bit more managerial things from the coaching standpoint, making sure our lineup sheets are out, that our refs know where they're at, that they have lineup sheets, that our stat guy has his stuff, and that we have volley right set up. So there's just a lot of setup things that first year I let the ball drop, or I guess the ball dropped a lot because I just didn't know what to do or what to expect. Because again, I was just used to walking onto the court and everything was good at the high school level. And so really it has become um, a routine. We have the way things worked out. I will say one thing I like to do with my coaching staff is we just sit in our office and we kind of like to listen to music, kind of get ready in that aspect. So we do have kind of our pregame rituals. And then as for our girls, we do actually make our girls set up the net. We think that that's important for them to have skin in the game with setting up the production side of things. So our girls do set up the net, and then they're here a couple hours before game time, and that's maybe they're in the training room getting treatment if they need treatment, prehab, or maybe it's just being in the locker room, having conversations, getting their mindset right for the game.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against?
Yeah, so we are in the KCAC, which is the Kansas Collegiate Athletic Conference. So we play a ton of Kansas schools, such as Tabor, Bethany, Kansas Westland, Bethel. We play a Nebraska school, York. We have a couple of teams in Missouri. Well, one team in Missouri. I guess we're another team in Missouri, but Evangel, St. Mary, Ottawa. So we actually have the privilege of not having to travel more than about 3.5 hours on average to our teams, which is really nice.
What is that home game atmosphere like when those teams come to your home facility versus going away?
Yeah, I think it really just depends on who we're playing, the day of the week. We are an institution that has heavily or has a lot of athletes. So we are funded heavily by our athletics. And so we do have a ton of athletes, but I would say it's very much hit or miss. So we have Wednesday night games. We'll maybe have a really great crowd, but maybe on Saturdays because our football team's playing away, we don't have as great of a crowd from like a student section. As for like parents and stuff, obviously all of our local student athletes, their parents are at games. So it's really just hit or miss. Again, that's something that we're working on again from an athletic department standpoint, just building the culture in a sense that our student athletes and just our students on campus want to be here, want to support, and want to make it an intense game day environment.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes? And as a coach, what do you look at in them?
Yeah. So it's different for every athlete. Some athletes come from maybe a connection that I have, and that's how we find them. Maybe we find some student athletes at or some recruits at qualifiers. So club volleyball is a really big thing, especially here in the Midwest. I would say just in the country in general, but club volleyball is another really big recruiting platform that we find kids, but really it's a matter of finding the kids however we find them, whether it's platform, club, connections, maybe some of our girls know them. And then it's, typically we like to jump on a phone call with these girls and get to know them just more on a little bit more intimate, deeper level to really see if there's somebody that we feel would add to our culture. And then from there, if we feel that they are going to add to our culture, we'll bring them on campus for a campus visit. And then from there, we'll decide if it's worth offering them and then giving them the opportunity to commit to us or decline us. And so really the number one thing we're looking for is their culture. Are they a culture kid? Are they going to fit in culturally, right? Obviously, if we're watching them, we know they have skill and we know they have talent. But really we want to find out culturally, are they going to fit our culture? Because we understand that one bad apple really can ruin the bunch. And so that's a big thing for us is making sure that they're going to fit in and not be a culture killer for us.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen putting on that Avalon jersey for the first time versus your seniors putting it on for the last time?
Yeah, so freshmen are fun because typically it involves a lot of nerves. So it's kind of funny to watch just because I'm like, hey, it's just volleyball, but it's also very nerve-wracking because they are, playing against seniors that have maybe been in the opponent's program for 3-4 years. And so it's comical to see the freshmen just because sometimes they do things and I'm like, what are you doing? But so that aspect of things is kind of fun, light with the freshmen. As for the seniors, it's very bittersweet. Like obviously our number one thing here at Avila is to help them get their degree and graduate and send them off into the world and be functioning citizens of society. But it's also very heartbreaking to know that they're about to leave your program and no longer be with you on a day to day. We spend a lot of time with these girls for 4 years. And so you really get to know them on a personal level. You go through their high highs and their low lows with them. And so that senior year is definitely it's an emotional thing. But also it's something to be celebrated because it's not easy being a college athlete and it's not easy making it to your senior year. Very few people, or I guess a very, very small percentage of people actually make it to their senior year, and graduate and play all 4 years. And so it's very bittersweet, obviously something to be celebrated, but also something to mourn a little bit as well.
How's that like getting to see them going on from playing college volleyball to getting professional volleyball or even getting into coaching?
Yeah, so I would say just watching them go on to the next path or the next stage in life it's really I guess proud. Like it just makes me very proud because something I tell them when they get here is we want to equip you with tools for life and we want to be a part of your story and we want to help you be ready to take on the world when you're done. And so watching kids transition into the next phase of life, whether that's professional, whether that's coaching, whether that's their job, whatever the case may be, It's just this very proud moment because you know that you had, as a coach, you had a very large impact on very predominant parts of their life, right? The young adults from 18 to 21 is a very influential time in their life. And so knowing that you played a pretty large and significant role just makes you very proud to know that there's some things that they learned that they're going to take on with them. And then there's probably some things that they learned and that they saw that they won't take on with them. And but it's a very proud moment and something that from you get to go from being a coach and kind of like an authoritative figure to them to being more of a friend and just a cheerleader for them and being somebody that will always be in their corner and have their back no matter what.
What are some of your future plans and goals for the program moving forward?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is, like I said, winning a conference championship. That's something that I said I wanted to do and I was planning to do when I interviewed for the job. And so that's kind of our next goal. But I guess our next big goal, obviously, we understand that that's going to take some time. And so that's not going to happen overnight. You know, Rome wasn't built in a night. And so I would say over the next probably 2 to 3 years, it's really just putting ourselves in the position to be in the top 5 in our conference and giving ourselves a shot at competing for a conference championship. And then obviously long term, winning conference championships and putting ourselves in a position where we're talked about nationally.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year?
I would say savor the moment. I would do anything to put my jersey back on and be back out on the court and get to play competitive volleyball again. It's just something that, again, I think back when I played, I probably took it for granted and didn't appreciate what that meant and what that looked like until, it was gone. And so I would say my biggest, piece of advice is just savor the moment and enjoy it. It's not going to be easy all the time, but also that's what makes it fun is because it is challenging, right? If it was easy, everybody would do it. And that wouldn't make it any fun.
What advice would you give those seniors that have aspirations of playing professionally?
Yeah, I think just in general, it's gonna be a grind, right? I think playing any professional sport is not easy. Not everybody gets to do it. 1% of athletes probably do it. And so I would say understand that it's not just handed to you, right? I think that's especially in today's society, a lot of things, a lot of kids think that things just come naturally or that they're just entitled to things. And I think that's not the case. Nothing in life is a handout. It's always going to be a grind and you're always going to have to put in the work, even when it's maybe not convenient, even when maybe it doesn't feel like you want to, you're tired, whatever the case may be. It's going to be a grind, but again, it's going to be worth it in the end.
What advice would you give those future head coaches looking to build their own program?
I would say find joy in it. I think my first few years, I didn't hate it by any means, but it wasn't as fun as it is now. I was so fixated on winning and so fixated on winning a conference championship and doing all of these things and seeing the success from the record side of things. Whereas over the last couple of years, I'm still super competitive and I still want to win, but there's also successes that can be had and made along the way that aren't on the court. And I think that's kind of a mindset shift that I've had, but then has also helped me find joy in the journey of getting us to a point where we are going to be able to compete at a really high level and win national or conference championships, get into the national tournament. And so I would say just enjoy it, find joy in the journey. I think at any point, a job is always going to feel like a grind, but if you can find ways to find the joy in the moments and work through it, then you're doing pretty good.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you on social media?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. My handle is Marylyn Mozena. And then on Twitter, it is Coach Mozena.
Thank you again, Coach Mary Mozena, for your interview and best luck in your future at Avila.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on YouTube or on Twitter. Thank you again, Coach Mary Mozena, for your interview and best luck in your future.
Thanks.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.